Hey folks, we're really lucky to have Donna here today. She's a cybersecurity expert, and she's going to be talking about fair quantitative risk analysis methodology. And I'm sure she's going to make that so simple that we'll all understand.
Yeah.
So Donna Gallaher provides information security and operational risk management advisory services, giving boards of directors and senior executive management teams the tools and expertise they need to navigate the unfamiliar waters of evolving markets. According to Donna, we facilitate collaborating among your company's business units to develop policies and operational risk mitigation strategies appropriate to your risk tolerance.
All right, Jim, thank you. Thank you. So these two are security certifications, CISSP and CCISO, and then CIPPE and CIPM is privacy. So you might be hearing about data privacy, European data privacy is GDPR, and then in California. So I'm actually certified in both. Earlier this year, I actually wrote an article for the ISSA journal, which is an information security article, or information security journal. And it's internationally published, and I said there's three things going to happen. Number one is you're going to see more virtual CISOs, right? And there's a couple of reasons driving it. The second is you're going to see a merger of security and data privacy. And the third is what I'm talking about today, which is FAIR, which is quantitative risk analysis. So let's advance the slide, go through our agenda. Okay. All right, so here's the, maybe that's the motion there, okay? It advances this. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the FAIR Institute, which I actually serve on their board now, and just got back from their national conference. In order to kind of get everybody on the same page, I do need to introduce some definitions to you. Normally I give this presentation to security and privacy folk, so I want to make sure that I'm not moving too fast and that you understand what we're talking about. And then I'm going to show you some inputs and outputs. I know we had some finance people here. Normally they love the finance slides, and because this is not a technical presentation. This is really about concepts and just a better way to manage risk. And I'll see if I can give you some examples as I'm going through the presentation. Okay, next. All right, so this is me. As I said, I started my own company as a virtual CISO last year. Had a long career journey of winding paths. I was telling Greg when I started, I actually graduated in electrical engineering from Auburn, all male dominated, and apparently it still is. Got into, because after a couple of years of working as an engineer, I decided I really didn't want to stay in there. I wanted to do problem solving type of stuff, but I was kind of more of a people person. So I got into sales. So started out with just kind of relationship sales, and then I got into more solution sales and technical sales. And then I got into IT service delivery. So that was more advocacy and customer experience, making sure they didn't have a problem after the sale. So I liked all of that stuff, but wanted to do more technical type of work. So I got into IT service management with Wipro and with SunGard of managing IT operations. So that was another pivot. Then I got into security and privacy and IT executive leadership, first with ABB software here in Atlanta, and then we're talking about First Advantage. I actually had an interesting application of what turned out to be very helpful to me later. At First Advantage, they had inherited an FTC consent decree from the Choice Point breach years ago. I don't know if you guys have been in Atlanta long enough, you might remember that. But basically, when the Federal Trade Commission comes in to audit your security program, it's a 20-year proctology exam. You can imagine that. And pretty much it's, most of the time security is show me your policy. Okay, you've got all the checks in place now, but this is evidence-based to show me the change ticket set you up, and show me that you got all the approvals and everything, and show me that the supervisor did this. So it is just every element of your security program having to prove it is what the project that I had to work on with Carolyn Holcomb. So that's when I was given that role with First Advantage, I was reporting to the CIO, and he says, Donna, we've just moved our primary data center out of LexisNexis into their own data center, and it broke a bunch of the program controls. So he said, we need to fix this, or the FTC can shut us down or fine the bejesus out of us, but I have no budget and I can't give you any people to work with. No pressure there at all, right? But that's like the facilitation. That's kind of why I focused in my biography on the facilitation of the way you do that, and it's what you need to do to apply FAIR, is you get the business on board. You explain to them, here is the proctology exam test that they're going to do on you. Here's what happened when the internal audit team tried it out, where they found out that it's breaking down, and then working with the business to make them understand, here's what's expected of me, here's how it's going to get tested, where's this breaking down in the process. So you have to apply those same type of things to FAIR as you're implementing it. Okay, so enough about me. Let's go to the next agenda. Yes? It's a Chief Information Security Officer. All right. All right. So all this lifetime of experience, and this was the problem that CISOs are still having, and why I started, really looking to start my own business. Last year when I was still kind of on the job search and saying, do I want to take another full-time role? There's too much focus on just technology only. Generally, they want to kind of nest you under a CIO when there's really other aspects of security and human resources, in cyber liability insurance that falls under Treasury. There's physical security, so maybe there's a facilities type of element to it. And then when you're trying to fund your projects, or you're trying to get money for your program and say, here's what we need to do, this is kind of the answer that you're getting back from the rest of the team, is they don't understand the risk. You're speaking a different language than the rest of the team. So this was the problem that I wanted to solve, and I think that's what FAIR does. Yes, Artie? It's a little focus, yeah, it needs a little focus, I think, on that. All right, so that's the problem, all right? So let's advance and go, and let's put the rest of them. Okay, so basically these are the problems that we currently have with the way cybersecurity is managed. Jim, pull up the rest of the bullet points on the slide, and one more I think there is. Okay. So the way security is done in companies now is they take a checklist of, here's all the things we're supposed to do. When you say we're doing this sometimes, we're not doing this, we're doing this ad hoc, and you kind of get a red, yellow, green dashboard. So the hope is that if we do all the best practices, that's managing risk, right? And if one is more expensive to do another, well, we'll see if we can do that next year, because we never have enough money for everything. But there's no context around what you're trying to do. There's just apply best practices to everything. That might mean you waste resources because you're protecting things that really don't need to be protected, and you're not focusing on the things that you should. So this is called implicit risk strategy, whereas FAIR is explicit risk. So advance then, please, Jim. All right, and again. So this is an example of like a checklist. This is what a lot of security reports look like. There's a maturity list of here's the controls, and they've red, yellow, green, and then Jim, go to the next slide. And again, and again. So these are what the board reports look like, and that's not helpful, right? You're like, well, is this good? I mean, I'm still kind of uncertain of where we stand. I know that red is bad, and I see a lot of red on there, but what is really the loss event that we're talking about? How much exposure do I actually have? So what FAIR does is it takes your scenarios and puts numbers around them. So let's do the next slide. All right, so if I said, kind of give you a concept about this. If I said that I had a bald tire, you'd say, wow, that's really dangerous, and you could kill yourself, or you could kill other people. You've already made some assumptions about this bald tire. So go to the next slide. What if the bald tire was a tire swing? Then there's really not a risk of me killing somebody else. Maybe there's a risk of me killing me, but maybe not so much from myself. So I treat that bald tire differently depending on what the context is. Well, the same is true in your security programs. A lot of times, you'll hear about, we have unpatched servers, and that's a big vulnerability. People can get in and exploit, the technology to infiltrate your network. Well, what is that server doing? Is it your e-commerce site where you're taking your customer orders, or is it like a test server that maybe this engineering team fires up once a month when they want to try something out, and it's not connected to anything, so you don't have to worry about it that much? Well, the way this gets reported back to the board is you have an unpatched server. We've got 500 unpatched servers. Well, you really don't know which ones are the important ones and which ones are the ones you have to worry about. So next, all right, and again, just more context around this. So if I said, all right, it's just me that's going to get killed, well, how likely is that? Well, is it, what's the condition of the rope? And does it matter if I fall, 10 feet or 500 feet? Am I going to fall off a cliff? I'm just as dead. So you kind of get to a diminishing returns point where, it doesn't matter if I replace the rope. If I'm still swinging on top of a cliff, I'm going to be just as dead at falling from 50 feet as I am from 500. Okay, so FAIR, what you're saying, what does FAIR stand? It stands for Factor Analysis of Information Risk. And as I said, it's explicit risk. You still need your controls. You still need those lists that the security team does of here's what all the best practices are. But now you're going to be applying those to individual scenarios rather than just across the board. All right. And the great thing about FAIR is that you can apply it to all kinds of risk. So it doesn't necessarily have to be technology. Let's say you had a cargo ship coming from overseas. What's the likelihood of that ship sinking and you losing your inventory? Or what's the likelihood of our company being sued by an employee because we had a data privacy request that we could meet? That you can take the same methodology I'm about to explain and apply it to all risk. Then you've kind of normalized the way you discuss risk at a board or an executive level in terms of numbers. Okay? Oh, good. Yeah, I just got you on the edge of your seats. All right. So who's adopting FAIR and why am I so passionate about it? By 2020, they're expecting 75% of the Fortune 1000 to be using some type of quantitative risk analysis. And actually go to the next slide. RSA is a big security conference where all the geeks go every year. and they just, they awarded the FAIR Institute one of the most important nonprofits of the last 30 years, just this year. And then last year, February 2018, the SEC issued a statement and guidance on public security and public company cybersecurity disclosures that they're recommending you do a quantitative risk analysis in your public filings. So that's why you're starting to see a lot of movement on FAIR and why we think it's so. Factor analysis, you ever had to do this with your kids, your grandkids? You take a big number and you break it down into prime numbers, right? So it's the same kind of concept of breaking risk down into some pieces that are kind of universal and general. So that's what the concept is for FAIR, all right? Next. Okay, and next. Okay, so there's a couple components for doing this scenario. So an asset, in terms of definitions, is the thing that has value. So data might be an asset, a data center might be an asset, a building, the cargo, the intellectual property. Those are the examples of assets, the thing that you want to protect. And then a threat is usually a person or a group of people that have a specific profile. So like a nation state attacker might be one, an insider employee, a receptionist, cleaning crew. These are examples of threats. So these are people that will try to or may try to attack the asset or get access to the asset. And they'll all have different profiles in terms of what their capabilities are.